you can see these lasers that are for sale. Basically, through light and energy, create a certain amount of heat that can actually cause fire. And as we know, people can purchase online lasers that can cut metal, that can cut wood, plastics, in any shape or design. So what says that the government isn't going to turn around, create that same thing, or hasn't already, to use as a weapon?
All right, we've got Hunky Dory. You are live on Marfoogle TV. What's going on?
Hey, Mark, Dex, Foogle Fam, first-time listener, long-time caller. How is everyone doing tonight?
First-time listener, long-time caller. I like it.
Hey, well, anyways, just to start it off, I work for PG&E. I am part of the Wildfire Community Outreach Program, and I'm kind of hoping to be able to take this time to answer any unanswered questions regarding our public safety power shutoff for California.
Okay, so we have a PG&E employee on the phone right now. Don't shoot at him, okay?
You saw.
All right, so what is your position there? Or can you say?
Not necessarily, because it'd be pretty easy to figure out who I am. But however, being part of the Wildfire Safety Community Outreach Program, basically we are here to ensure that during high fire threats to California, especially the northern regions from Siskiyou County all the way down to Bakersfield, that under the current circumstances of our history of bad, big wildfires, that we essentially shut power off to protect our customers and people who are within the state of California, within those regions, to make sure everyone is safe.
Now, can I ask you, are you a normal watcher of the show, or did somebody at PG&E say, hey, can you call into this show?
No, actually, I've been with you guys since April 2018.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having or coming on the show. So let me ask you this. So you, as somebody who works there, you believe this is completely normal, and you kind of, knowing what you know, you say we shouldn't be worried.
Well, never said you shouldn't be worried. Never said you wouldn't. It's not normal necessarily. However, I would definitely say that the extent of the drought from the last couple of years in California, along with a higher population within California, we actually have a higher risk of having a very potential catastrophic wildfire within California. One of the things that we want to look at is, if you look at back in 2018 when we had the Camp Fire incident, and even further back, 2017, the Tubbs Fire, whatnot, basically California has turned into a complete tinderbox. And one of the best examples that I can give everyone is, if you've ever looked on YouTube, online, and you look at an old Christmas tree that is basically run out of water, and the fire department turns around and puts a match to it, the big thing basically lights off like gasoline to a fire and burns. And that is the current state of affair that California is in, due to drought conditions and other underlying factors. And so one of our stances that we are currently sitting in is, how do we prevent that spark that is going to potentially add to that potential for a wildfire to start?
Now, one question for you. So this is all over a potential spark. Have they kind of weighed, what could happen? How are they handling? One thought I had is, how are they going to stop people from looting if everybody's included, right? They're not leaving the power on at the grocery store, are they? Or are they shutting down everybody?
So that's a good question. So anytime it comes down to shutting power off, whether it be for a city or for a county, everything is broken down into line segments. So we can essentially shut out distribution lines that go to outlying portions of the county and continue to have power within the city, right? Because you got to look at it to where you have a certain line that breaks off into multiple fingers. You can shut power off on certain fingers, but yet keep power on the main line. Now, to answer your question about looting, this is something that for the last 2 years, PG&E has been working directly with local law enforcement, whether it be local police departments, sheriff's departments. If we want to talk about CAL FIRE, Forest Service, California Office of Emergency Services that works directly underneath the governor. All these things have been outlined and been noted to where when we get ready for one of these power shutoffs, everyone has been notified prior. Staffing has been upgraded so that everyone basically gets called onto overtime to make sure that the community is taken care of and to make sure that everyone is staffed, whether it be for fire department, local EMS, same thing with law enforcement. So during this very short time that the power is actually shut off, basically all avenues of emergency services are covered.
Now, a short time, but they do say, or is this incorrect, 7 days in some areas. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. So when they say that it could take up to 7 days basically to restore power, a couple of factors that we have to look at is that, so if we look at the Bay Area, North Bay, all that good stuff, so all those power lines, distribution, transmission, that's all pretty close together. So when there is a shutoff, basically when we get ready to energize those lines, individuals have to go out and put their eyes on each individual line before the power is able to be restored. We want to make sure that there's no trees, there's no branches, nothing that could be on those lines. So when they are energized, they become a conductive factor basically to start a wildfire. Now, if we want to look at long-term restoration, we look at the power lines, let's say distribution that run into the Northern Sierras, Siskiyou, Redding, those areas. Basically, we're looking at hundreds of miles of distribution lines. That's a lot of man hours, a lot of people that actually have to be boots on the ground to make sure that nothing is on those lines before that power is restored. Recently, we basically put out there that we have over 6,300 employees, whether that be mixed contractors, so on and so forth, basically on standby. This includes helicopters, air operations, vehicles on the ground, people on the ground, to ensure when on those further regions we get ready to restore power, we have plenty of people to be there to make sure it's safe to restore power. So that 7 day, up to 5 days, 3 days, whatever it is, when we look at those further areas, yes, it takes a while because we look at easements on people's personal properties. A lot of individuals don't like PG&E being on their property to make sure that those power lines are safe. Those are just some of the things that we run into just to make sure that we can re-energize as soon as we can.
Now, okay, so a few questions here. Now, somebody made a comment. They said, did you guys have more than 2 days notice? I mean, could you have technically given 5 days notice or a week notice, or did you guys is this like a all of a sudden decision?
So when this whole public safety power shutoff began, if we look back in 2018 and prior to that, Santa Clara Valley Power, along with San Diego, SDG&E, they've been doing these public safety power shutoffs for the LA County, San Diego County for many a time now, basically shutting off power at the highest fire threat when there is potential for trees basically to land on limes. 2018, early 2018 is basically the time where we said, hey, obviously some of the things that we have set in place is not working, so we need to move forward and we need to change something. So we essentially turned around and said, hey, this is something that we're going to start from this point on. So moving forward, we've worked with California, Office of Emergency Services under the governor, again, local sheriff's department, PD, local county fire districts, special fire districts, city fire districts, all that good stuff. And we basically said, coming up into the next fire season, this is something that we could potentially face. During that time, we've also reached out to every PG&E customer that is basically purchasing power from our utility district and said this is something that could happen. And up to this event recently, we've been notifying prior within 48 hours, if not a little bit more, that, hey, the fire weather's picking up. We're looking at warnings showing that fire danger is increasing, relative humidity is dropping, winds are increasing, all that good stuff, which could lead to a potential public safety power shutoff. 24 hours on the dot prior to that shutoff. And go ahead if I'm
no. This is fascinating. But I mean, I mean, you do understand that somebody going without power for 7 days, I mean, people, are you guys afraid of what might happen this is the first time you've done this, correct?
No, this is actually probably the fourth or fifth power shutoff we've actually had within 2 years. And yes, we're scared just as much as everyone, because people got to remember, us as PG&E employees, we are community members. Our families, our grandmothers, our aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, our children are directly affected based on the decisions that we make. And this is definitely a concern, because my wife works for a school district, and she has to travel the roads with dysfunctional traffic lights on her way to work because the power's been shut off. I mean, this isn't, yes, it's national news, but this is definitely hitting us within our community, and we understand that. I mean, we live it same as everyone else.
Now, on one other note, since you are somebody who, it sounds like you could be their public relations manager. Let me just ask you this. Do we, as a country, do we have some worries about our power grid? I mean, obviously, T-Man just signed that new bill. Did you guys kind of get a big portion of that? Do they come down on you and say, hey, you've got to fix your grid? Is this in any way related?
When it comes to stuff particular to that, I can't necessarily speak directly to it. However, I can speak to the fact that we have been going through and replacing our wood poles with metal poles, any uncoated distribution lines, 2-phase overhead, 3-phase overheads, all that good stuff. We're working on making those fully coated. Cyber attacks is one of the biggest fears that we actually have, whether it be through malware or any other means. So it's definitely something that we spearheaded, especially since we actually had our transformers shot up by a militarized group that is still to this day unknown and unnamed. So it's a huge concern, and it's something that whether it comes from basically our NERC and our FERC regulations, whether it comes from the California Power Utility Public Commission, all that good stuff. I mean, this is something that we're definitely trying to beef up the power grid, make sure that it's safe, so that, again, us who work for PG&E also live within the community, can provide for our families.
Wow, this is incredible. I'm so glad. I mean, we had no idea. So we have this incredible, this is like a story that everything about. Can I ask you just one more? Another question is, do you worry about our entire grid failing? Is that something just you as an employee? Do you worry about that? Not anything, about clearance or anything that you should know. Are you personally worried that at some point our entire grid might go down?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Along with anyone in the tech field, basically everything is absolutely vulnerable. If we look at the power grid systems that operated back in the 1980s versus now, back in the 1980s, everything was basically walked up to a switch and you turned power on versus turned it off. Versus now, everything is through Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all that fun stuff. It's more advanced than my knowledge in the field. But it's one of the things that we constantly get alerted about, is that something as simple as, and this happened a couple of years ago, I want to say back in 2016, I could be mistaken, but I think it was back in 2016, something as simple as opening up an email actually wiped out the power grid system. I think it was over towards the East Coast that wiped out hundreds of thousands of customers. So it's something that we definitely beef up our security, our cybersecurity, and just hoping and praying that no one clicks the wrong button when it comes to opening up emails or whatever the case may be. But the threat is definitely there. And our own government has been warning us in the last 3 or 4 years, if not even further than that, that, hey, there's definitely vulnerability. I mean, it's something man-made. You know, just like they say, anything that has batteries is going to fail eventually, right? Same thing with our power grid. Everything's man-made. Someone's going to find a weak point within the backbone, and they're going to strike that. And I can't stress enough that people just need to be prepared. And I think this power outage is a very good warning for that.
Okay, so one thing that I'm seeing is pretty common. So, well, one question real quick. Is PG&E going to reimburse us for food that goes bad? That's what David Drake IV said. I'm assuming that's a big no.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. So I know last year, again, being a customer of PG&E, whether I be working for them or not, but I still purchase power at the same rate every other person does. That was one of the things that was brought up is, hey, my food spoiled over a 3-day period. Am I getting reimbursed? I really can't answer that. However, the rumor was not necessarily, because they gave within a 24-hour notice saying, hey, you need to get generators, whatever the case may be, to make sure that nothing goes bad. But again, I'm not an official spokesperson for PG&E. A lot of rules and regulations have changed since then. So there very well may be some, let's say, insurances or liabilities that are provided back to the customer to assist them during that time.
Yeah, Michelle Sood says, dude sounds like legal department. You actually do. You sound very, I mean, you sound very well knowledgeable about and you are very, it's not like you are slipping on anything. So, and by the way, and this is somebody who's been watching my show for a while. So, by the way, I did ask you, we did talk about Paradise. You said that it originally started out, they said it was a campfire, but apparently,
No, the name of the incident was the campfire. So there's been multiple incidents. You got to remember, when you have like Paradise and all those other incidents that happen, basically they name that incident after either the cross section or the cross street of where that incident essentially started. So the Paradise Fire, right, was started over in Poe Creek, near the Poe Creek campgrounds. Transmission lines were found in that area where the fire originated, and they did find that those transmission lines, those overhead phases, were essentially damaged or riddled with bullet holes. Simultaneously, within 5 minutes of that initial fire start, 5 miles down the road, there was a secondary spot that also occurred and basically assisted in the growth of the Paradise Fire. We want to talk about me sounding like I'm an official spokesperson. I'll put it this way. Many years in the fire service has taught me to be very careful what I say.
Well, okay. Somebody said, why is PG&E headquarters blocked off? Are they afraid of people revolting? I would probably say yes, right? I mean, if people were shooting at the trucks.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that is not very uncommon for the main headquarters down in San Francisco, basically to go on lockdown. We had the Orville site. It was like a MNC center, something like that. Basically, it was egged. However, the employees that worked there, again, local community members, felt threatened, so they locked that place down. The employees went home. During this time, I would say shortly after, whether it be an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, we got a report of a PG&E employee who actually said their windshield blew out. They heard a loud pop. CHP, California Highway Patrol, started investigating it and provided a photo online and showed what looks to be a .45 caliber bullet that actually went. If anyone on here listening knows anything about fire department, you have your A and B pillar side on the door. That's where the bullet actually went through, missed the driver. So that obviously prompted PG&E as a whole to go onto a security lockdown to ensure the safety of its employees.
Wow. It seems like, and by the way, somebody said, it doesn't matter how many minutes. This is like this is like an exclusive right here, man. You know, of course we're getting the comments that it sounds rehearsed and all this and that. Do you ever? I honestly, I'm like, wow, you know everything about this, and it was kind of convenient you called in. Let me ask you this: do you believe in DEW weapons?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually had an employee who worked for the U.S. Navy, whose spouse at that time, whatever year that was, actually helped work on developing some of those weapons, and which I didn't believe it at the time, honestly. But when she was starting to divulge some of this information, I was like, okay, it makes sense, because you look on eBay, YouTube, you can see these lasers that are for sale. Basically, through light and energy, create a certain amount of heat that can actually cause fire. And as we know, people can purchase online lasers that can cut metal, that can cut wood, plastics, in any shape or design. So what says that the government isn't going to turn around, create that same thing, or hasn't already, to use as a weapon, right? It's a little bit cheaper to pay for energy versus expelling lead downrange.
Well, and another question is, somebody in California says there's no wind. So what's up with that?
Yeah, so again, that's actually a very good question. So what we're looking at essentially is a northeasterly wind that's coming up, or coming down, I should say, from the Nevada, Reno area, that's bringing hot, drier winds and brings it all the way down to Southern California. As we all know within the emergency services, this is typically around this time of year we get these types of winds that are hot and drying, and we can get up to 50 to 75 to 80 mile an hour gust winds. It's not sustained at 55 mile an hour, again, at the higher elevations. A lot of people who are reporting that there is no wind are at lower elevations, whether they be in valleys or what we call saddles, within the topography of California. You may not feel it down there, but the wind is up on higher elevations. Now, the reason these public safety power shutoffs occur currently is because that distribution or transmission line that feeds within the city, right, or within that community, you may not feel wind down there, but as you follow those lines where they're basically fed from the nearest power station or substation, end up at higher elevations, and it's the higher elevations that are the biggest concern. That's where the wind's going to be felt, where you have the potential for trees to fall down, land over those lines, start a fire with those high winds, and that wind just carries that fire all the way into the community, and then we have another Paradise or Tubbs fire or any other type of incident that we've talked about in the past.
So, I'm actually kind of confused why so many people are so unwilling to listen. Everybody's saying, oh, this is fake and this and that. Okay, first off, there's no way you know this much, and whatever it may be, maybe you are, you've drank your work's Kool-Aid. I don't know. I'm not saying you don't, but I'm at least giving you a chance to talk, because this is something, this sounds like, this sounds like a direct quote. You're talking about because I've read over this over the past 8 hours, and you're quoting stuff like it from the back of your hand, the back of your hand. And I get it. You said you spent a lot of years in this business, so you're careful about what you say and this and that. But you have to understand, people are going to think this is the, I guess, public relations office calling into Marfoogle News to smooth it over. It's kind of crazy. I mean, you know everything about this. So, no, I want to thank you for calling in. I wanted to ask you a couple off-kilter questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it this way. So I'm just a normal guy who lives in the high fire threat areas that, anyone else does here in Northern California. And anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm on Discord. I can give them a personal call. Shoot, I'll meet them face to face. We'll have lunch, coffee, whatever it is, and I can pretty much answer any questions that they would like. Again, it definitely sounds scripted, but again, I want to try to stick to as many facts as I can without turning around and just interjecting my own opinion, because my own opinion doesn't necessarily have facts to back it up. again, my background.
Are you afraid
is
of
from,
stating your own opinion?
No. I mean, I will, but again, my opinion can definitely be swayed by stuff I read online versus what I witnessed, in the field. It's just, I would rather not put doubt in individuals' minds based on stuff I can't necessarily prove. You know what I mean?
Like?
Well, people want to turn around and say, let's say PG&E is part of this big conspiracy or whatnot. And shoot, I don't know. I mean, I'm just boots on the ground. I'm just a everyday Joe Smuckatelli like anyone else. I'm here. I joined PG&E basically to make a difference because I live in one of these high fire threat areas. If anyone wants to make a difference in what's going on, I mean, it's like, hey, either you join them and figure out what's going on and do what you can to make a change, or you can just sit on the sidelines. It's easy to speculate, but actually once you get out there and see actually how, once you see actually how, go ahead.
Did the Rothschilds own PG&E, or is that a rumor?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. That was something that I've always wondered about. I mean, I don't doubt it necessarily. I mean, PG&E is probably one of the largest power utility companies in the U.S. I mean, why wouldn't they have some form of, financial, anything within that? They very well could be. I can't say yes or no.
Well, hey, I just want to thank you for calling in. It looks like we got some insight, at least from a legit PG&E employee. I appreciate you. And again, in the end of the day, you've been watching my show for a long time, so I thank you. I don't want to offend you. I'm just trying to state what the chat says, and you have to understand. It sounds like you are. I mean, in fact, you sound like a CEO of a company. Very, very good question. Good question. That's it's been like you've had 1,000 of these questions asked by reporters, by this, by that. So you sound like you're just not your average PG&E worker. But
absolutely. Well, that's what's called, you talk about PIOs, right? Public information officers. That's what we're trying to say. Basically, not to incriminate ourselves necessarily, but get the information, get the facts. Only the facts.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for calling in and giving your kind of inside knowledge on it. And I appreciate your call, and I appreciate you watching my show. And I hope you can call in again. If you see something power related on future shows, please call in and let us know, debunk or this or that if you can. Honestly, it's just everybody's view. People that are like, don't listen, blah, 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 blah. It's like, you can at least listen. And that's why we say, take everything with a grain of salt. We don't know. Who knows? You could be a Rothschild. I'm just kidding.
Oh, right.
So
look at my house. You'll see that's the opposite. But I'll finish it with this, and I really do appreciate your time. Again, hit me up on Discord. If you want a face-to-face, meet me, see my house, see what I own. I'm more than happy to, sit down and chit-chat and, give you any information that you would like.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Hunky Dory, first-time caller, calling out of California, PG&E employee providing update on power outages. You have a wonderful night, and God bless, all right?
All right, thank you, Mark. You
all
guys
right.
as well.
All right, bye-bye. Last year, T-Man signed an order to harden the grid because it was found to be so vulnerable that the Homeland Security actually did a resilience report and told us as people that we need to be prepared for 6 months to a year without power. That's not because they think it might happen or, that it's a tiny percentage that it could happen. They really do truly believe that we are going to have some sort of event. So we should be prepared for that. If you guys want to support the channel and protect yourself against an EMP blast or a Carrington event, this would be the way to do it. We are working with a company that is directly helping our government, the DoD and the Homeland Security, fix the grid, or at least make it better. Now, if you have an EMP shield, what it does is it grounds the signal faster than it can fry all of your devices. If you go to marfooglenews.com/EMP, you'll get more information. But again, you can get protection for your ham radio, your solar system, your RV, your generator. Again, even if the power never comes back on, if you have one on your generator, as much gas as you will have power. Or a vehicle EMP protection device will save your vehicle. Your vehicle's not really going to be of much use after an EMP unless you have something like this to protect it. How are you going to get out to your bug out spot if you can't get out there? And then, of course, there's the home version as well. Again, you can get $50 off of each device that you get from them if you go through our link. So they have actually teamed up with Klarna, and essentially this option will require no money up front and is interest-free. They did this because of our audience, and that's pretty amazing. EMP Shield is made in the United States. It is 100% protection against lightning. They actually guarantee it. So again, even if you're in an area like Florida that has lightning, the lightning capital of the world, it's a whole lot cheaper than even a deductible on your house insurance if you get struck by lightning and it fries everything. This will protect you. It is the only military-grade EMP protection device.
You want to know what's going on? What's really going on when it happens? Go to marfooglenews.com and get Marfoogle alerts along with a Discord invitation where you can find your local state group and get together with the Foogle Fam. You'll find fast friends where you'll share prep and intel, and there's even special groups for former and current military. But don't try and steal the valor of those who have really served. It won't go well for you. The Marfoogle Fam is waiting for you.